That's why I'm like, when you say you're 5, I was 11 months, I look at my kids and I'm like, how did we do what we did?
Did you know that some of the most iconic child stars we grew up watching actually regret being famous? From Macaulay Culkin taking legal action against his own parents to Amanda Bynes publicly spiraling after years of being Nickelodeon's golden girl, these stories will make you rethink the price of childhood fame. Here are the 20 child actors who regret being famous. 1. Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin is one of the most iconic child stars ever. He became super famous for his role as Kevin McAllister in the Home Alone movies. But with fame came a lot of problems. Macaulay's relationship with his parents, especially his dad, Kit Culkin, became pretty strained. His dad managed his career and was known for being really controlling. Imagine being a kid and having to deal with all that pressure, not just from the fame, but also from your family. Kit was strict, and the success made things even harder at home. Macaulay was making millions, but being the main source of income for his family was too much for a kid to handle. Eventually, in 1995, things got so bad that Macaulay decided to take legal action. He emancipated himself from his parents to have control over his finances. He accused his dad of mishandling his earnings, and this decision marked a big turning point for him. After that, he stepped away from acting to focus on his own life. As a teenager and young adult, Macaulay faced some challenges with his mental health. He once said that fame kind of stole his childhood. He also struggled with substance use, but with time, he managed to get back on his feet and find stability. Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes was one of Nickelodeon's biggest stars back in the day, but as Amanda grew up, things got a lot tougher. The pressure of being famous from such a young age took a toll on her mental health. In 2013, Amanda started to have some very public struggles. She was dealing with mental health issues, and it became clear that she was going through a really hard time. Amanda later shared that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was working on managing it. Around this time, her social media presence became pretty chaotic. Some of her posts were really worrying, and people were genuinely concerned. Amanda admitted later that her struggles with substance use made everything worse. It didn't help that people on the internet were quick to judge rather than support. Legal issues also became part of Amanda's story. She got into some trouble with the law, and in 2013, she was placed under a conservatorship. It was clear that she needed time away from the spotlight to focus on herself. 3. Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore is one of those celebrities who has practically grown up in the spotlight. But as it turns out, being famous at such a young age wasn't as glamorous as it seemed. Drew's early fame came with a lot of pressure and challenges. As a kid, she was exposed to a lifestyle that wasn't really meant for someone so young. By the time she was 12, Drew was drinking alcohol, and by 13, she was using drugs like cocaine. It's really sad to think about how much she went through at such a young age. Things got so bad that at 14, Drew decided to take charge of her life. She went to rehab and worked on getting better. She also chose to legally separate from her parents to gain control of her life. Later, she wrote a book called Little Girl Lost, where she openly talked about her struggles and how she found the strength to overcome them. In her late teens and 20s, Drew made a pretty incredible comeback. She starred in movies like The Wedding Singer, Never Been Kissed, and Charlie's Angels, proving that she wasn't just a child star, but a talented actress with a lot to offer. Despite this success, the media often focused on her past, calling her a troubled former child star. This wasn't always easy for her, but Drew didn't let it stop her from moving forward. 4. Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman was one of the most famous child stars of the 1980s, but while everything looked great on the outside, Corey's life behind the scenes was really tough. He has been very open about facing mistreatment while working in Hollywood. In his book Choreography, which came out in 2013, he shared how he and his best friend, Corey Haim, were mistreated by powerful people in the entertainment industry. These experiences caused him a lot of pain and trauma, and it's heartbreaking to know that both he and Corey Haim went through that. Dealing with this trauma wasn't easy, and it led Corey to struggle with addiction. In the 1990s, he got into some legal trouble related to drug possession. He has been honest about how his struggles were connected to the things he went through as a child actor. Despite his challenges, Corey remained friends with Corey Haim, and they supported each other through tough times. Sadly, Haim passed away in 2010 after battling addiction for years. This loss hit Corey really hard. 5. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan was one of the most famous young actresses of the early 2000s, but being famous at such a young age wasn't as easy as it looked. Lindsay's life started getting complicated when she grew up. Her parents had a really messy divorce, and that affected her a lot. On top of that, the pressure to keep up her image in Hollywood was overwhelming. Trying to balance her career and personal life became really tough. In the mid-2000s, things started to get out of hand. Lindsay was constantly in the news for partying too much and getting into trouble. She was arrested several times for things like driving under the influence and drug possession. The media covered every detail, and it felt like everyone was watching her make mistakes. Because of these issues, her career took a huge hit. Directors didn't want to work with her, and it seemed like her acting days were over. Lindsay eventually realized she needed to make some changes. She's been pretty open about her struggles with addiction and mental health, saying that she's learned a lot from her past. Moving to Dubai helped her a lot too. 6. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf started his career as a young teen on the Disney Channel. Even though he seemed to be living the dream, Shia's childhood wasn't easy. He grew up in a rough environment where money was always tight and his dad struggled with addiction. Acting became Shia's way to support his family and escape his tough reality. But that kind of pressure on a young kid wasn't healthy. As Shia got older, his life became more chaotic. He dealt with anger issues and struggled with mental health. Fame only made things worse, and he sometimes acted out in public. In the 2010s, he was involved in several incidents, like getting arrested for disorderly conduct. People started seeing him as unpredictable, and his performance art projects, like wearing a paper bag on his head that said "I am not famous anymore," left fans confused. In 2020, Shia faced serious allegations from his ex-girlfriend, FKA Twigs, who accused him of mistreatment. This was a huge wake-up call for him, and he admitted that he needed help. He started therapy to confront his past and work on becoming a better person. During this time, he also converted to Christianity after portraying a priest in the film Padre Pio. He said it helped him find some peace and purpose. 7. Mara Wilson. Mara Wilson is one of those child stars from the 90s that everyone remembers. But even though Mara seemed happy on screen, being famous as a kid wasn't all fun and games. Behind the scenes, she was dealing with a lot. She faced tons of pressure to always be perfect. As she got older, she started to worry a lot about how she looked. Hollywood can be really judgmental, and Mara felt that pressure, especially when her appearance began to change as she grew up. She felt like people didn't accept her anymore just because she didn't look the same. Things got even harder when Mara's mom passed away from cancer while she was filming Matilda. Losing her mom was really tough for her, and it made her realize that being famous didn't make everything better. No amount of success could fill that void. Mara started to think about whether being in the spotlight was really what she wanted. As she grew up, Mara began to struggle with anxiety, OCD, and depression. She has been super open about her mental health struggles, which is really brave. Eventually, she decided to step away from acting. Instead of focusing on Hollywood, she went to college and started writing. She realized that she wanted to live a more normal life and work on herself. Jake Lloyd. Jake Lloyd became really famous when he played young Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. When the movie came out, Jake was just 9 years old. Unfortunately, not everyone loved his performance. Some Star Wars fans were pretty harsh, saying mean things about how he acted. The internet and media weren't as kind as they could have been, and that negativity really got to him. Jake also faced bullying at school because of the role. Kids would make fun of him by quoting lines from the movie, and it made school life pretty miserable. All that pressure and criticism had a big impact on Jake's mental health. He ended up quitting acting in 2001 because he just couldn't handle the negativity anymore. He said that being part of such a huge franchise kind of took away his childhood. He just wanted to be a normal kid. But being known as Anakin Skywalker made that impossible. In 2015, things got even more complicated when Jake got into legal trouble. He was involved in a high-speed police chase and was charged with reckless driving and resisting arrest. It was really sad to see because it was clear that he wasn't doing well. Later, his family revealed that Jake had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, which explained some of his struggles. They admitted him to a psychiatric facility to get the help he needed. 9. Jodie Sweetin. Jodie Sweetin is best known for playing Stephanie Tanner on the hit TV show Full House. After Full House ended, Jodie struggled to figure out what to do next. As she entered her teenage years, she found it really hard to adjust to a normal life without the show. The pressure and confusion led her to start experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, things got worse from there. Jodie has been really honest about how she fell into addiction. At one point, she was using hard substances like methamphetamine and cocaine. She went through several relapses, hitting rock bottom more than once. It's heartbreaking to think about how a childhood filled with fame ended up with such struggles. But Jodie didn't give up on herself. She knew she needed help, and she eventually got into rehab. The journey to recovery wasn't easy, but she fought hard to get better. After achieving sobriety, Jodie wanted to help others who were facing similar problems. She became a certified drug and alcohol counselor, using her own experiences to make a difference. 10. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen are probably the most famous twins in Hollywood history. As they grew up, the Olsen twins didn't just stick to TV, they built a whole empire. They starred in tons of movies and had their own TV shows, like Two of a Kind and So Little Time. They also created a production company called Dual Star Entertainment Group, which made them millionaires before they were even adults. On top of that, they launched fashion lines, makeup, dolls, and pretty much everything you could think of. Even though they seemed to have it all, being in the spotlight wasn't always easy for them. The media was constantly watching their every move, and that pressure made them feel uncomfortable. Mary-Kate, in particular, faced some tough times with her health. She struggled with an eating disorder and went to treatment in 2004. Dealing with fame and personal issues at the same time was definitely hard. As they got older, the twins decided they wanted a different life. In the mid-2000s, they stepped away from acting to focus on something they were really passionate about: fashion. They launched 2 successful fashion brands, The Row and Elizabeth and James. These brands became really popular and showed that they were more than just former child stars. They were serious designers. The Olsen twins may have found success in fashion, but not all child stars managed to move on so gracefully. 11. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman was one of the most famous child stars of the 1980s. Even though Gary became super famous, his life wasn't as great as it seemed. The money he made from the show was a lot, like millions, but he didn't get to keep most of it. His adoptive parents and his business advisor were in charge of his finances, and they ended up mishandling his money. Feeling betrayed, Gary filed a lawsuit against them in 1993 and won a $1.3 million settlement. But even after that, he was left financially drained, and the whole experience took a toll on him. Gary also had serious health issues. He was born with a congenital kidney disease that required dialysis, and his condition stunted his growth, leaving him at 4'8". Being short made him a target for bullying, and people made a lot of mean jokes about his size, which really hurt his self-esteem. As he grew up, Gary found it really hard to get acting jobs. Hollywood kind of moved on without him, and it made him feel frustrated. To make ends meet, he worked as a security guard in the 2000s, which shocked fans who remembered him as a big TV star. Unfortunately, he also had some run-ins with the law, including altercations with fans and his wife. Gary's marriage to Shannon Price was rocky, and they had a lot of public disputes. In May 2010, Gary Coleman passed away at the age of 42 after suffering a brain hemorrhage. 12. Todd Bridges. Todd Bridges is best known for playing Willis Jackson on Different Strokes alongside Gary Coleman. But when Different Strokes ended, Todd's life took a dark turn. Like a lot of child stars, he struggled to transition from being famous as a kid to figuring out his life as an adult. His career kind of stalled, and he felt lost. To cope with his feelings, Todd turned to drugs. He became addicted to crack cocaine, which led to even more problems. He started selling drugs and got involved in some really dangerous situations. In 1989, things got even worse when Todd was arrested and charged with attempted murder. A drug dealer was shot, and Todd was accused of being involved. He claimed it was self-defense, and after a tough trial, he was found not guilty. Even though he didn't go to jail, his reputation was damaged, and people started to see him differently. Thankfully, Todd didn't let his mistakes define him. He knew he needed help, so he turned to faith and went through rehab. It wasn't easy, but he finally got clean. After getting sober, Todd made it his mission to help others who were going through similar struggles. He started speaking at community events, sharing his story, and offering hope to those dealing with addiction. 13. Tatum O'Neal. Tatum O'Neal is one of those child stars who made history really young. She was born on November 5, 1963, in Los Angeles, California, and her parents were famous too. Her dad, Ryan O'Neal, and her mom, Joanna Moore, were both actors. When Tatum was just 10 years old, she starred in the movie Paper Moon with her dad, and her performance was so amazing that she won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. To this day, she's still the youngest person to ever win an Oscar. But behind all that success, Tatum had a really tough childhood. Her parents divorced when she was still young, and her mom struggled with addiction. Tatum often felt alone and neglected. Growing up in the spotlight made things even harder because people expected her to be perfect all the time. It didn't help that her dad, Ryan, was known to be emotionally and physically tough on her. Tatum has been very open about how hurtful that was and how it affected her growing up. To cope with everything, Tatum started using drugs as a teenager. It was her way of dealing with all the pain she was carrying. Unfortunately, her addiction got worse as she got older, and she ended up getting into serious substances like heroin and cocaine. This led to a lot of legal issues and public scandals. In 1986, Tatum married tennis star John McEnroe, and they had 3 kids together. But the marriage didn't last, and they divorced in 1994. Tatum lost custody of her children because of her addiction problems, and that made her feel even more broken. 14. Aaron Carter. Aaron Carter was one of the biggest teen pop stars of the late 90s and early 2000s. Born on December 7, 1987, in Tampa, Florida. Aaron started performing when he was just 7. His big break came with his debut album, Aaron Carter, and songs like I Want Candy and Aaron's Party made him super popular among kids and teens. Plus, being the younger brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys made him even more famous. At first, Aaron's life seemed like a dream. He was touring, making hit songs, and had millions of fans. But as he got older, things took a bad turn. Even though he made a lot of money, his finances were a mess. His parents managed his money, but there were fights about how it was being handled. At one point, he owed over $3.5 million in taxes, which is crazy for someone who was just a teenager when he earned it. As Aaron grew up, he started struggling with addiction and mental health issues. He talked about his problems openly on reality TV, sharing that he dealt with anxiety and depression. His relationship with his brother Nick became really strained, and in 2019, Nick filed a restraining order against him, saying he was worried about safety. Seeing these family problems play out in public was really sad. In 2013, Aaron had to file for bankruptcy because of all his financial problems. He also got in trouble with the law several times for drug-related incidents and driving offenses. His behavior became more unpredictable, and social media made it easy for everyone to see his struggles. Even though he tried to make a music comeback with the album Luva, 2018, his personal life always seemed to overshadow his talent. 15. Edward Furlong. Edward Furlong became famous practically overnight when he starred as John Connor in Terminator 2: Judgment Day. He was only 13 when the movie came out, and everyone was talking about how awesome he was. Born on August 2, 1977, in Glendale, California, Edward went from being just a regular kid to a huge Hollywood star. Acting alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big deal, and people thought he was going to have a long and successful career. But while it looked like everything was great, Edward's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. He didn't really have a stable family growing up and was raised mostly by his aunt. All that sudden fame was a lot to handle, especially since he didn't have much guidance. To cope with the pressure and loneliness, Edward started using drugs and alcohol when he was still really young. It didn't take long before things got out of control. Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, Edward struggled with addiction to heroin and cocaine. His legal troubles also started piling up. He got arrested several times for things like domestic violence, drug possession, and breaking probation. As you can imagine, his career took a huge hit. Instead of landing major roles, he ended up acting in low-budget films and couldn't finish some projects because of his addiction issues. Eventually, Edward realized that he needed to get clean. After going to rehab and facing his problems, he started talking more openly about his struggles. He admitted that he made a lot of mistakes and that addiction had really messed up his life. Even though staying sober is an ongoing challenge, he's working hard to stay on the right track. 16. Angus T. Jones. Angus T. Jones is best known for playing Jake Harper on the sitcom 2.5 Men. Born on October 8, 1993 in Austin, Texas, Angus became a huge star when he was just a kid. His character, Jake, was a lovable, goofy teenager who always had something funny to say. Fans loved his silly jokes and clueless attitude, and the show became one of the most watched sitcoms on TV. By the time Angus was 17, he was making around $300,000 per episode, making him one of the highest-paid child actors in the industry. It seemed like he had it all: money, fame, and a successful career. But behind the scenes, Angus started to feel uncomfortable with the show's content. As he got older, his personal beliefs started to clash with the show's jokes and themes. In 2012, something major happened. Angus had a religious awakening and became a devout Christian. Suddenly, he didn't feel right being on a show that he felt went against his values. He even called 2.5 Men filth in an online video and told people to stop watching it. A lot of fans were shocked, and some of his co-stars and producers felt betrayed. Angus later apologized for how he said it, but he stuck by his decision to step away from the show. After his public comments, Angus left 2.5 Men in 2013. He made a brief cameo in the series finale, but that was it. Instead of acting, he decided to focus on his education. He went to the University of Colorado Boulder and got involved in business ventures and religious work. For Angus, leaving Hollywood was about finding a more meaningful and peaceful life. 17. Dustin Diamond. Dustin Diamond became famous for playing Samuel Screech Powers on the popular TV show Saved by the Bell, 1989 to 1993. Born on January 7, 1977 in San Jose, California, he landed the role at just 12 years old. As Screech, Dustin was the nerdy but lovable sidekick, and his goofy personality made him a fan favorite. People loved how funny and awkward Screech was, and Dustin became instantly recognizable because of it. But being known as Screech wasn't always a good thing. After Saved by the Bell ended, Dustin had a really hard time getting new acting jobs. Casting directors only saw him as Screech, and no one wanted to give him a shot at more serious roles. Being typecast like that made him feel stuck, and he struggled to move forward with his acting career. Money was also a big problem for Dustin. Since he couldn't find consistent work, his finances got really tight. In 2001, he even had to file for bankruptcy. To make some quick cash, he made some questionable choices, like releasing an adult film called Screeched, Saved by the Smell, in 2006. Later, Dustin admitted that the film was just a stunt to make money. He also released a book called Behind the Bell, where he shared some pretty negative stories about his time on Saved by the Bell. Later, he said that most of the book wasn't even written by him, but by a ghostwriter who made stuff up. Dustin's life got even more complicated when he faced legal trouble. In 2014, he was involved in a bar fight in Wisconsin and was accused of stabbing a man. He was found guilty of carrying a concealed weapon and disorderly conduct, which led to a 3-month jail sentence. It was a rough time for him, and his public image took a major hit. In January 2021, Dustin was diagnosed with stage 4 small cell carcinoma, a type of cancer. Sadly, he passed away just a few weeks later on February 1st, 2021, at the age of 44. 18. Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette McCurdy became super popular for playing Sam Puckett on iCarly, 2007 to 2012, and later on Sam and Cat. Born on June 26, 1992, in Long Beach, California, Jeanette started acting when she was really young. By the time she was 15, she was already a major star on Nickelodeon. Her character, Sam, was tough, funny, and a little bit wild, and fans absolutely loved her. It seemed like Jeanette had it all: fame, money, and a bright future. But behind the scenes, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. In her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, 2022, Jeanette opened up about the darker side of her childhood. Her mom was super controlling and forced her into acting to support the family. Jeanette didn't really have a choice. And her mom also pressured her about her appearance, leading to eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. It's heartbreaking to think about how much pressure she faced, even as a kid. On top of that, Jeanette also revealed that working at Nickelodeon wasn't always great. She mentioned feeling uncomfortable with how some things were handled behind the scenes, especially around a person she referred to as the creator. That negative experience made her not want to return for the iCarly reboot, even though fans really wanted to see her back. After her time on Nickelodeon, Jeanette felt really lost. She struggled with anxiety and depression, trying to figure out who she was without her character. In 2017, she decided to quit acting altogether because it just didn't make her happy anymore. 19. Corey Haim. Corey Haim was one of the most famous teen stars of the 1980s. Born on December 23, 1971 in Toronto, Canada, he became super popular after starring in movies like The Lost Boys, Lucas, and License to Drive. His charming smile and natural talent made him an instant heartthrob. Haim often starred alongside his best friend, Corey Feldman, and together they were known as the Two Coreys. They were best buddies both on-screen and off-screen, and fans couldn't get enough of them. Haim started acting when he was really young, making his film debut in Firstborn, but it was his role in The Lost Boys that really made him a superstar. He played Sam Emerson, a teenager fighting against vampires, and people loved him for his humor and energy. The movie became a cult classic, and Haim's career seemed unstoppable. But with fame came a lot of problems. Haim's quick rise to stardom made life pretty overwhelming. Growing up without much stability, he began using drugs as a way to cope. It started with alcohol and marijuana, but soon he was doing harder substances like cocaine and prescription drugs. As his addiction got worse, his career started to fall apart. He became unreliable, which made it hard to get roles, and by the 1990s, he was mostly in low-budget movies and reality TV. Haim's personal life was just as tough as his career. He was hospitalized several times for drug overdoses and tried rehab more than 15 times. Despite his efforts, staying clean was a constant struggle. Financially, he was also in a bad place and filed for bankruptcy in 1997. He had huge medical bills and couldn't find steady work. 20. Mischa Barton. Mischa Barton appeared in movies like The Sixth Sense and Notting Hill, but her big break came when she landed the role of Marissa. But as awesome as it seemed, being famous so young wasn't easy for Mischa. The show made her a tabloid target, and the media constantly picked apart her life. She's been really open about how tough it was to deal with that pressure. People had huge expectations of her, and it was hard to keep up with what everyone wanted. After she left the OC in 2006, things started to get really messy. Mischa struggled with mental health issues like anxiety and depression. She was arrested for DUI and marijuana possession in 2007, and in 2009, she was hospitalized after a mental health crisis. Looking back, she says the non-stop attention and judgment only made things worse. Mischa felt like she couldn't be herself without everyone watching and criticizing. Besides mental health struggles, Mischa also faced a lot of body shaming. The media would constantly comment on her weight, and it really messed with her self-esteem. It's pretty messed up how people focus on looks instead of talent. Misha tried to make a comeback by joining reality shows like Dancing with the Stars and the Hills, New Beginnings, but the public still saw her as a troubled star. One of the worst experiences was in 2017 when an ex-boyfriend tried to sell private videos of her without her consent. Misha took legal action and spoke out against this violation of her privacy, making it clear that no one deserves to be treated that way. If you found their stories interesting, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories like this. Let us know in the comments which story surprised you the most, or if there's another former child star you'd like us to cover.